The proximity to Knowle is absolutely unique and very, very important for Sevenoaks.
We love it here. It's a great town.
One of the reasons that I moved to Sevenoaks was to get more of a greener life.
And I just like the community spirit. You do sort of know everybody.
Sevenoaks is a great town, good schools, I've got a young family.
To have a professional theatre, a professional cinema in a town of 20,000 people is hugely important.
We're very fortunate to have a wonderful business community.
Sevenoaks isn't quite what people think it is.
When our children were young, we came back here because I wanted them to experience something of my childhood in a countryside setting, and Sevenoaks is beautiful for that.
I reckon there are probably 2,000 people employed in the centre of Sevenoaks, and when you think that the Sevenoaks town has a population of about 20,000, that gives you some feel of how important it is.
Because we have got a lovely town, but it is up to us to make sure we look after it.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction: stay at home.
Initially it was a bit of a shock to be closed. I think it happened over a weekend. The first reaction was panic.
Shortly after sort of lockdown was announced, just walking down the high street of Sevenoaks, and you thought, this is extraordinary.
Obviously some businesses like retail where they've had to close completely, and hospitality.
We've had a lot of employment issues to contend with.
All the musicians I work with, many of them have been profoundly affected.
As far as business is concerned, it's been a disaster.
All we know is that we just had to close a restaurant that we'd just opened.
It's been very isolating. The children have found it extremely hard to be at home.
In Sevenoaks, the first wave of the pandemic, we actually gave away nearly 7,000 meals.
We'd got a full calendar of exhibitions right through till the end of 2021. Felt very sorry for the artists.
It's been just a devastating time for them really, and for all businesses, large and small.
It's definitely a time of challenge and change. I think that's been true for the high street continuously since the invention of out-of-town supermarkets, but this is going to be another new level of that.
The old formula of let's have some large shops and people are going to turn up in cars and just to visit those, it really doesn't look like it's going to be working.
And we're battling constantly against the internet and online purchasing, and people coming in, looking around, seeing a helmet they like, trying it on, wandering off and buying it online.
Some trends that were already very apparent before the pandemic struck, such as the plight of the high street.
We're a member of the Association of Town City Management, and their take on it is that what they were predicting for the next 5 years of more online shopping happened in 5 months.
Going back to the high street after the pandemic was a bit like being a tourist.
What are we going to do with our town centre? How are we going to face into a world where post-pandemic things aren't going to go straight back to the way they were?
If we're going to make the centre of Sevenoaks work, it's going to have to be a place where people want to come.
The COVID effect has been to demonstrate how seriously important social contact and sociability is.
I guess for me a town is the community hub.
And to use what towns have always been, which is marketplaces and meeting places and places for exchange of ideas.
The Stag, you would not believe how many people they have at the Panto.
23,000 people in 4 weeks come through the town. That means they pay for parking, they go to a bar, they go to a pub, they go to a restaurant.
The Stag, as a cultural icon, is also an economic centre.
And the reason we took it over was not because we fancied running a theatre or a cinema, I can assure you, but it was because of how it would underwrite the local economy.
But we're also dealing with a whole range of other activities.
Sevenoaks has never competed on price, it's competed on having interesting things to offer.
And it's just been through this really extraordinary time of closed down for so many reasons. The shops are changing, shopping's changing.
And we actually have the opportunity, I think, in Sevenoaks to demonstrate to the whole country and beyond how you can make a town centre really live and thrive in the kind of COVID, post-COVID era, whatever you want to call it.
A focus on independence has meant that people will travel to Sevenoaks.
We have one large Marks and Spencers and some large chain stores, but it's mostly small independents, which is what makes Sevenoaks such a charming town.
The best way to manage our way out of this crisis is to promote economic growth.
We opened up December of last year.
They're local individuals starting their businesses who've chosen to set up on Sevenoaks High Street in the middle of a pandemic.
So it's been a really interesting time to start a business on a high street.
Despite sharing the journey with them, I can't begin to contemplate how tough that may be.
And it's also noticeable in Sevenoaks that the multiples, as is true nationally, were amongst the first to begin to pull out.
I'd like to see an encouragement of what's called localism.
Shopping small, shopping local, shopping independent.
Wherever possible, we try and get everything
bred from Sussex.
Yes, as local as we can.
So it has economic benefit, it has environmental benefit, and it just supports the community.
For every £1 that is spent locally can create £5 worth of value.
And how's your day? And how's the weather out there? I mean, simple things like that, which online can't replicate.
I like to think it's an old-fashioned shop where you can come in, you can have a chat.
With us small retailers, it's our livelihood, and we do it because we're passionate about it.
Our kitchen is upstairs, we hand make everything.
We roast in-house, and I think that comes through when you taste it.
I looked as I got ready to come out today and I thought, gosh, every single thing that I'm wearing I bought in Sevenoaks.
I can look at somebody as soon as they walk in the shop and know what's going to suit them.
Of course, individual businesses have a much greater awareness of their locality.
And 9 out of 10 times they walk out of here with something they wouldn't have even thought of trying on and look amazing in.
They're not responding to some corporate diktat, but what they're doing is thinking about their own response to what their customers might need.
Now, a couple of the tenants that I've spoken to said in a positive that has come out of the pandemic is that certain things that they've been thinking of doing for ages, this forced their hand and made them to do it.
We put in place things that we had been planning for 2 years in a week.
From March, my work went completely remote.
People now drinking a lot more coffee at home, so that coffee market, that home coffee market is absolutely boomed.
So as a company we've evolved, and that's why we've invested heavily into e-commerce.
We basically worked alternate days. That was to protect the business.
We also facilitate the Sevenoaks Visual Arts Forum, and it's a group of about 70 artists, and we've tried to keep us going and connected, and we've organised 2 online exhibitions.
We rewrote and re-rehearsed the show for cameras, and we live broadcast 2 performances of the pantomime from the Stag.
And every Friday I change my windows, which has had a really good positive effect.
So many businesses have adapted so quickly to be able to provide those services.
We've got a landlady who's absolutely fantastic, and a landlord.
We've become perhaps landlords, advisors, and in some cases a shoulder to cry on as well.
It's a two-way relationship. I mean, they are lucky that they don't have a void property, and we're lucky that we've got supportive landlords.
The financial support package from the government was very good.
And the grants have been a lifesaver.
I don't know how people would have survived if that hadn't been given, to be truthful. I think it would have been a far darker picture than it is.
Looking at how we can encourage the high street to thrive, I do question the kind of fees that people are asked to pay to park.
So really, do you want to spend that sort of money to come into Sevenoaks? What happens is you just quickly come in, do what you want to do and dash off.
And you can then drive to Bluewater, where there's an array of shops and you can park for free.
I think Sevenoaks really has to think about how accessible it is.
It doesn't encourage you to hang around, walk around the shops, maybe have a coffee.
The District Council is massively dependent on car parking money.
Yes, we know it's a source of income for the council, and we know it's an important source of income.
So if you have to charge for parking, which except you do, maybe some sort of compromise.
I would like to see is contactless card payments.
Things like in other towns locally, you can pay when you leave.
Give a discount to electric vehicles.
Maybe just offering free parking on quiet days.
We do have quite a lot of parking now in Sevenoaks.
The multi-storey is fantastic, not bad value for money.
I'm doing this interview literally in a parking space that will cost somebody coming to the town centre, it will cost £1 an hour.
There are all sorts of apparently irreconcilable issues at play. One of those things is the sort of car, traffic, parking issue.
The high street's changing. It's It's going to change in the future. It's not so much about shopping as it's about an experience.
Having wider pavements, having pedestrianised areas just makes it easier when you're going in town with kids.
Because we've got no garden and virtually no outside, to get more pedestrianised would be brilliant.
Anything to increase footfall and the attractiveness of walking around Sevenoaks.
I've been surprised actually by how bad the pollution is.
Because let's face it, if we're going to get a thriving community in the middle of Sevenoaks, it's not going to be done by cars.
You know, retailers, they need footfall.
Businesses often think that if you reduce car parking or if you make areas like the high street pedestrianised, that it will affect footfall. And actually, the opposite is most commonly true.
When I have seen towns like Chelmsford, like High Wycombe, pedestrianise their high streets, it's been transformative.
Making the high street one way, perhaps tree-lined pavements, cafes, restaurants and other businesses to operate in the open air on those wider pavements.
Knowle House and Knowle Park, that ought to be much more closely integrated.
I've seen some great plans, particularly one by Roger Fitzgerald, who gives a broad vision of how Sevenoaks could look and feel.
One-way systems, wider footpaths, more trees, stuff. It was absolutely fantastic.
It's a medieval town with a new shopping area in its heart, and the town needs to be knitted together so that people walk through it.
I think what I would say, if anybody looking at the plan, if they're interested in them, that they should really not look at them in isolation.
This is a big year for something called the Neighbourhood Development Plan.
I really hope it'll be adopted in time to integrate the social activities, sports, arts, library, you know, and the intellectual activities as well with the commercial activities in town. And I think that could happen.
I think inevitably there will be some businesses that will suffer. We won't see the full impact really until some of the funding stops.
Having to close week before Christmas was heartbreaking. I cried and I cried, but what do? You pick yourself up, you dust yourself down.
The support of the local community kept us going actually in some pretty dark days.
And when our communities come together to work with what is needed in our locality, then I think we can achieve great things.
I think to date we're close to nearly 200,000 meals we're giving away as a company.
So yes, people do feel a sense of belonging here, identity.
Having a market town that is being utilised and populated by people who are spending more time living here, spending more time working here, will really provide quite an exciting way forward.
It's really important that we try and keep it local.
There's definitely an element of people who would normally see somebody in London and have realised that there are people locally. This end of the high street and then Blythe Meadow, where you've got the two markets on a Saturday, are buzzing.
In the last few months, just within a minute's walk of the pub, we've had 10 little shops open.
The thing that will save Sevenoaks is its people. It's the local residents who will save it.
And the support of the local community, because that's who we need.
We've got a solo show in with David Minton, who does beautiful work, and to just come into the gallery, it just glows.
I hope that one of the things that this situation has made people realise is how valuable the arts are.
It's being in Sevenoaks that makes Sevenoaks what it is. It's nothing without people.
We want you in the town. We need more independence in our town. We've got a handful of empty shops. Let's have this almost like an introductory package.
You need to make it more affordable for entrepreneurs to enter that market.
There's been a lot of conversation, but not much action.
We need to get there by involving people in the decisions. If you make decisions for people, if you impose change on people, then the reaction is going to be negative.
Undoubtedly the pandemic has changed the way we shop, so the commercial offer in Sevenoaks is going to change, and the best way we can manage that change is to invest in time to get local ideas and get local people involved.
We have the Sevenoaks Women's Forum, which obviously only approaches 50% of the opportunity, but there are many groups like that that could initiate a conversation.
I think we need to have a collaborative approach. I think the community does need to be involved, and I think all the local authorities need to be involved as well.
But I'm sure as businesses we can engage and be engaged by the politicians.
So it's going to be a very interesting and challenging time, not just in the coming months, but over the next 5 and 10 years. And there's never been a better moment to have a really good conversation between ourselves about how we get from here to there.